So I want to thank everybody for joining us, particularly our featured guest, which is a dear friend of mine for a number of years now, who I'll introduce that story in a moment. Today's topic is about entrepreneurship, being agile in a weird time, in a weird market, turbulent times. And Pietro Barone, who is the vice president, managing director, and a number of other titles for Windfarm, who he's going to describe in a moment. This webinar is brought to you by two sponsors. The first sponsor is RIT's MS Time program. That's our Masters of Science in Technology, Innovation Management, and Entrepreneurship, which is a STEM-designated degree that has two separate tracks. The first is a tech management track, which is basically an MBA focused on the tech sector, broadly defined, with analytics woven deeply into the curriculum. The second track is an entrepreneurship track with tech deeply woven into the curriculum, so that if you decide to go out and start a business that has anything related to the tech industry broadly defined, it's a great option. Or if you want to go out and work for a big tech company, it's a great option for you. So that is our first sponsor. Our second sponsor, I'll kick it over to Pietro Barone, and he'll tell us a little bit about Windfarm.
Sure. All right. Thanks for having me, Steve. This is definitely a great forum to talk about all things entrepreneurship. So yeah, my name is Pietro Barone. So our company, Windfarm, we manage a collection of health and wellness brands, right? And these are primarily over-the-counter brands, mainly in the dietary supplement space. Some of the brands that we manage, some of them are owned by our company, and some of them are owned by other companies where we simply just manage for them exclusively in certain markets, primarily in the United States market. But our brands range from joint health to everyday vitamins to pre-diabetes care to hair care to colon cleansing products. So we have a good range of products in the OTC space. And we handle all aspects for the brand, marketing, sales, fulfillment, operations, logistics, supply chain, everything to keep the brand going and growing. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'd encourage everybody to take a look at their products at Windfarm. It's a great company. I know basically the entire ownership team and the periphery, and I can say they're great people. So entrepreneurship was an interesting topic to bring up today, and I wanted to just show everybody. So Pietro and I, when we were we met our first year of college at Rutgers, but our third year of college, we decided to start a marketing company when we had little to no idea exactly what marketing was. Not advice for anybody, but just something. And as I was digging through my files this morning, I actually found this. He and I took $1 and wrote 50% ownership, and we called our company B&C Marketing Company. And we ripped the dollar in half and gave it to each other. So just kind of a fun thing there to give context to everybody. Turns out that's about what we ended up with, was half of $1 when we were all said and done. So I don't know.
Why have these long contracts when you can have $1 bill that you can slice in half and just say 50%? Yeah, that's good.
Exactly. We didn't need lawyers. We could have used that dollar to invest in the business. But anyway, all right. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's always been most interesting to me about your business, it's the over-the-counter supplement business, right? So it's this immensely regulated, unregulated market.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you operate in this space and what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys face?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm glad you touched the regulation part. And it has like a two-parter, right? It has pros and cons to it. So dietary supplement space, is regulated by the FDA. But there are some challenges because the regulation part that the FDA does for dietary supplements mainly are around labeling, claims, and manufacturing quality. Those are the three main areas, right? And when you look at healthcare in general and other products and regulations, dietary supplements, it's pretty easy to get into. It's very low barriers of entry. So in some cases that is a positive if you're looking to start a business in the dietary supplement space, but is a negative almost for us because the market just becomes saturated with so many products. Every one of those conditions that I mentioned in the beginning, joint health, prediabetes care, daily vitamins. I mean, each one of those markets are saturated with Me Too products, right? And the way the regulation is, it's tricky because you have to be careful what you say, your claims, even if you can substantiate it, because dietary supplements are products intended to supplement a diet, right? So your claims cannot border, talking about specific conditions. So, for example, I wouldn't be able to say that this product helps with joint pain. I can't say that, right? Even if I have studies that show that it does help with that, I won't be able to say that because, the product is a dietary supplement. So when you look at that dynamic, you're putting everyone in the same realm, right? So you may have a product that doesn't have those clinical research, but is saying the same thing as you are, that has all the clinical research, right? So it's almost forcing you to compete with products that, you're definitely better at. So it's tricky. It's a tricky landscape to be in. So that's definitely one of the main challenges that we deal with.
So you said something interesting, which is, and it's such a weird overlap, right? Because so you said the barriers to entry are low. So basically right now, if I took this right here, this salt, and I said, this is a dietary supplement, and this dietary supplement will support something health, anybody could do it. So the only real barrier to entry is size and capital. But at the same time, no one can really replicate the skill set, or at least immediately replicate the skill set that you guys have. So, as far as looking at opportunities, how do you navigate those waters? How do you straddle the fence between finding an opportunity because of the low barriers to entry, and then at the same time ramping up on the back end to be able to be competitive? I mean, that seems like a weird balancing act to strike. How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so it's a great point that you talked about, because that intangible, right? That gray area that just makes this brand better than the other brand, right? When they're saying the same thing, it does come back to branding, right? The overall look and feel and experience that customer's having with you. So with our company, I would say in the last couple of years, maybe the last 5 years, we have changed our strategy to focus on the branding of our products, the story that the products are telling, right? Because if we're just competing on what each claim, what we can say and claim and all that, you're fighting a losing battle, because you may get another product that's just going to say a stronger claim and try to get away with it until they get caught, So for us, we focused our attention on the branding behind the products, the overall customer experience in dealing with, one of our products, let's say in VigoFlex, right? The experience that they get in dealing with our customer service team, with our order team, or the marketing that we're putting out. Those intangibles is what allows the customer to stay with you long-term, right? That's what, you get that brand loyalty. That's what we're going after, the brand loyalty.
And I mean, so one of the interesting things for those of you who hadn't got a chance to look at Windfarm, they manage domestic. So there's a domestic piece in terms of the brands, and they've created some products themselves, and then they've managed some international brands for big conglomerates and everything. So tell me a little bit about that, right? So when we're talking about the regulation and we're talking about finding opportunities and the branding, that's focused on the US market. How does that change in the global landscape?
So going to your point, the brands that we have brands that we own, right? That we own, and we obviously manage those brands, right? Then we have brands that we manage exclusively for other companies, right? So it's they own those brands, but they've given us the distribution rights to essentially manage the brand on their behalf, right? And depending on the particular brand, it's mainly in the United States, or if they've given us certain licenses for other territories, we can explore Canada, Mexico, or Asia, or Europe, and all that stuff. And when you deal with that, you're having different levels of dynamics at play, depending on, number one, the size of the business and the size of the brand, but also, what their goals and expectations and strategy is, right? So we deal with distributors that are very large, like you said, some conglomerates, and then we deal with some companies that are very small, some 1 or 2 or 3, person teams. And it really just goes back to what their expectations and strategy is for the brand and what they're looking for. Sometimes with international partners, they're looking to us to expand their brand into the United States market. And their expectation is, well, it's the US market. It's, it's so easy to launch a brand, and their expectation is to bring a brand from zero to a couple $1 million in under 6 months or a year. And that's, those are very difficult expectations to pare back, especially when you're dealing with the regulations dynamic that I just showed you, like you really have to have a unique story and a unique way of saying it. Otherwise you're not breaking through. And I see that there's a question that came through, but I do want to clarify. Most of the business is B2C. We do sell also to, distributors and resellers, wholesalers, and stuff like that. But we do primarily focus on B2C.
So the regulation or the regulatory dynamic, do you find, because what you said before, if anyone just joined on, what you said before is the thing that makes your competitiveness stay as such, or at least how you drive your competitiveness, is through branding and the relationship that the consumer has with the brand. But is there a benefit to the international brand? Is there a global presence that adds some legitimacy to the product? I mean, basically the question is, does the global landscape help or hurt you, it being a global product, do you think?
Yeah, so it just ultimately depends on if you're able to leverage it or not, right? So we have some brands that also operate in the international markets, and it's a very large brand internationally. However, because some of the other international markets allow them to tap into their studies and tap into their clinical research and all that, and we can't, or we're it's a very gray area to talk about. It hinders us in terms of trying to talk about those other markets, right? So it just ultimately depends if you're able to leverage the message, right?
Got it.
Where it comes into play, we focus on healthcare providers, right? We provide sampling programs to healthcare providers. So we do trade shows in the United States. If those international doctors come over and they recognize the brand, then that's where our benefit comes in as well.
So now let's ask the big question that everybody who runs any kind of company has been asked over the past 12 months. COVID. What has COVID done to your business? Has it been in any way positive? What are the challenges? Let's just have a COVID dissection.
Sure.
Yeah.
So listen, with COVID, the first thing I have to say is that we were extremely lucky. Our business is primarily online. We do sell directly through our websites. We have e-commerce websites for all of our brands. We do sell on Amazon. So that has been a big plus because our business was able to still generate revenue throughout the COVID closures and all that stuff. The challenging part really lied with us working operationally, with our employees and trying to balance out creating a safe environment and still operating, right? So we fulfill a lot of our orders on purpose. We've never gone to a fulfillment house because fulfilling our products has always been a core competence of us, of our team, right? So we've only done that internally. Well, that's been challenging because we get a lot of orders every day, and if we shut the office down, then there's an extra day that a customer has to wait for that product. And if there's extra delays that happen, then all of a sudden we're shifting customers from ordering directly through, our website, let's say, and they'll order on Amazon, where our margins may be a little tighter because of their structures of fees. So that has been really challenging operationally to just balance out. Okay, can we bring the customer service team in, or can they work remotely, or can the fulfillment team still come in, or do we have to work in shifts? So there's not there's one person in the shipping room at a time. It's definitely forced us to think differently. We were never set up to really work from home. Aside from me and some of the other owners, we all worked from home, but the rest of the team, there was no opportunity to work from home. So we had to invest in certain technologies, certain platforms to allow the team to work from home and to allow collaboration to happen. And I will also say COVID affected some of the distribution channels, right? So, some of our products used to be sold at some large chains, right? Walgreens, CVS, and all that, Rite Aid. That model had always been a goal for a lot of our brands, right? In trying to introduce brands in the past, it was always like, all right, well, how do we get into the chains, right? How do we get there and then leverage that? Since COVID, I think that strategy has changed for a lot of our brands. Our brands now are focused on, all right, well, how can we get directly to the consumer through e-commerce, through Amazon? How can we improve on their experience once they're on the website? How can we make it personal? How do we train the customer service team to, be educated on the products, but also give them the customer the information to better take the products? So the COVID has definitely changed our way of thinking and our way of doing business.
So one of the things I'm most interested in, just generally speaking, is the way in which businesses generally respond to disruptions. And COVID was one of the biggest disruptions many businesses have seen in a number of years. How did you guys stay agile? I mean, was it something where the management team always was kind of keeping competitiveness and market dynamics at the forefront of your mind? How do you stay agile? Because you're in a saturated industry, or really not even an industry. I mean, market segments are really saturated, and you guys operate, you're kind of a small to medium enterprise, if not medium to slightly large enterprise. I mean, how do you do it? What is it about your company that allowed you to remain agile and be successful through this disruption?
Yeah, so, I know, Steve, but we are a family business, right? So my father started the business about 20 years ago. And I would say, like I said, in last 5-10 years, we have really made a proactive, we've made our approach to be more proactive instead of reactive, right? I will say that there have been years that we've just been too reactive, right? We would see an opportunity come, we would see a problem happen, and then we would react. And we wanted to change that mindset. So to directly answer your question, it goes all back to mindset. Our mindset at our company changed drastically. So there's actually a really good quote that I really try to live by, right? Because everyone says, "Oh, you're so lucky that you were able to close this business," or "You're so lucky that you were able to pick up this brand and stuff." And really, luck means is when being prepared meets opportunity. That's all it means. And we've really tried to live by that, because I know there have been times years ago that opportunities have passed our way, and we haven't been able to fulfill them just because we weren't set up that way. We weren't agile. We weren't proactively trying to think that way. So it really does go back to mindset, and then trying to build a strategy around it. I'm a very big meetings guy. Like, I like to meet with my team frequently, probably more frequently than they like, but it's all about trying to keep an open dialogue with them, right? To discuss, like, okay, what's going on? What are the problems? What are we seeing? What information are we getting back from the doctors or the customers, or what are we seeing at these trade shows that we were going to, like? And that forces us to think, wow, okay, the market's going this way, or hey, that's a good opportunity. Let's improve our website to allow to do that, or let's it just forces us to start implementing things more quickly.
So I want to go back a little bit about kind of capitalizing on opportunity.
Yeah.
because you've got some interesting channels through which you distribute product. On the one hand, you've got a push that's towards doctors, physicians, generally speaking, be it for joint health, pre-diabetes care, etc. And then you've got this other push where it's slightly, or rather directly, Amazon or your e-commerce platform, right? So you've got this going on in terms of the how the product gets out to market. And then you've got that context that we described before. A lot of other products compete with it. You could only say certain things. So when you're scanning for opportunities, I mean, what made you say, yeah, pre-diabetes care is something we want to get on? Yeah. What made you say colon care or hair care or whatever, you know?
So there's a lot of different factors, right? We actually have like this internal checklist, but even that checklist, it changes so frequently, right? Because there's so many levels of it, right? So like it depends on the brand. So you mentioned pre-diabetes, right? So that was a brand that we taken from, that we partnered with an international company. And we were really interested in the pre-diabetes space because, in our opinion, it seems so untapped, right? I mean, if you look, there are, I forgot the stats, like 90% of people are pre-diabetic, and or something like that. Not 90% of the people who are pre-diabetic don't know they are, you know. So there was just this untapped potential to both educate and help people and tap into something that we can really help them solve this problem of blood sugar management and stuff. So that was a big pull for us to get into that space. And then, you know, some secondary stuff, the formulation is clinically proven, and there's nothing really like that in the market. So it's very unique, and it would fit into us going to the doctors. In other situations, there may be a case where a company approaches us and they pitch, you know, hey, this is a brand that may be a good fit for you guys. And if we feel that maybe the brand is being undermanaged, right, or they're not doing things that maybe we specialize in certain marketing aspects, and the product itself is a really good, high quality product, really good ingredients, has that solid base of uniqueness, then that's an area that we would focus on. But I will tell you, there's been many cases where we have turned brands away, you know, because it's just not a good fit. You know, they're bringing nothing is unique to the table, or the brand is too small or even too big. It just depends, right? We're big about it being a good fit for both of us, or their expectations are too high, or their strategy is just not aligned with what we're trying to do.
So what you said there was interesting, and I think we might have talked about it in the beginning, but branding obviously is a differentiator. But for Windfarm, as I recall, the big differentiator is that with all the products, there's clinical research to support it, right?
Yeah. So for the most part.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, for the most part, we really like when there's clinical research, obviously, right? It gives that uniqueness. It gives that stamp of approval, like, hey, this stuff is legit, this works and stuff. Now, listen, not every single one of our products have clinical research. It doesn't always has to translate into that. It could also translate into, you know, offering a high quality ingredient. And when I say that in the sense of the right version of an ingredient, the right dosage of an ingredient. So we have some products that, if you look at it on the surface, they look like any other product that you would find on the market. But the ingredients is so specific that we're probably paying 50% more than what some of our competitors are paying for that same ingredient. It's just there's so many, it's things that are behind the scenes, you know, like the type of ingredient, the quality, the dosage, how much of the ingredient we put in the back end of the product. So it doesn't always have to be tied into a scientific study, but it all has to lead into high quality and it working.
And the reason why I bring that up is because, you know, one of the things that's emphasized around entrepreneurship, generally speaking, is looking for opportunities and how to commercialize them. So what I think is worthy of that story to highlight is that when you scan the market and you saw other products, given how saturated and regulated it is, that was a differentiator for you, right? So that was kind of a thing to focus on. And that leads me to my next question, which is for entrepreneurs out there, budding entrepreneurs who are trying to make a serious go at it in any industry, because you've been involved in this business, but you also have been involved in a couple other businesses from inception to growth. I mean, what advice or anything could you tell them to say, hey, these are the things you've got to do to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think there's a lot of things that new entrepreneurs can remember and think of. I think the first thing in my mind is that the mindset, right? I think you have to go into entrepreneurship and realize that it is hard work. It's not supposed to be easy. And I say that because sometimes people say to me like, oh, you work for a family business, it's your business, it has so many perks, you can take off. And I'm like, listen, I don't clock out, I'm always on. I have never had an out of the office reply on my emails, never. Right. And I say that because that's just to give you an inclination, like I'm never off. I go on vacation, I'm working. My wife knows my work doesn't stop. We had our daughter 3 years ago, had my daughter on Friday, Monday I was back at the office. And I could have taken 2-3 months off. And it's that entrepreneur mindset that you're part of the business, your stake is into it. So it's yours. You have to put in the work, right? And it is hard work. It's not supposed to be easy. So I mentioned that because I for a lot of the new entrepreneurs going into it, I think it's really important for them to realize you're going to have a lot of those sleepless nights and working late and some of the other things to remember. And I think this is more when you're in that growing stage, right? Or when you're starting to develop a team. I think it's important for entrepreneurs to remember that you can't do everything. And I say that because that's happened here years ago, where I had my hands and I had, I wore so many different hats, and I had to force myself to really start delegating. And I had to focus my time on things that really move the needle, right? And then I had to train my team to focus on other aspects of the business. So like, for example, right now, I purposely don't get involved in shipping out orders unless I have to, right? Or unless they were really slammed, right? And I do that not because I'm too good for it. Just because I need to focus my attention on things that are going to move the business forward. And I see so many entrepreneurs try to do everything, and it's just not possible. You have to focus on the things that are moving the needle. You have to focus on the things that only you can do, right? If it can be replicated, then delegate it out to a team member and focus on something that only you can do.
So in the process of that growth phase, one of the things that you all certainly faced at Windfarm, and I'm sure is going to be applicable to anyone listening in now who's an entrepreneur or anyone who might watch the recording, as a small to medium business, you're, depending on the industry you're going up against some giants, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So first part of the question is, what's been your interaction with these big giants that you've dealt with? And the second part is, how do you remain competitive, right? And not just generally speaking, but now we're talking, how do you win the David versus Goliath kind of a competition?
Yeah. So, okay. Great question. So when I started, right, like I said, this is a family business. So when I was really getting involved in the business, I hated telling people we were a small business, hated it. And actually, Windfarm, the name was supposed to give you this grandeur of being larger than it is, right? And it was all this mindset like you have to be big to compete. Whereas now, hey, we're a small business. I love to say that we're a small business because that activates that mindset that you're hungry, you're relentless, you're driven, right? And I say that because these larger organizations, some of our competitors that we're dealing with, they're just slower to react to opportunities that we had mentioned, right? They're slower to feel the vibrations of the market, right? So we have purposely set up our team to be agile, to realize these opportunities, because that is a competitive advantage of ours. If I needed to create a product a new brand right now, I can definitely do that. And I could do that quickly, and I can put my team to work quickly. We're a larger organization. They have so many different teams. They're very siloed, and, everyone's worried about, not screwing up in terms of their individual tasks. For us, we have different departments, but we work so closely and they're so intertwined that it just allows us to move quickly. So that's a big distinction between small to large organizations. And that's why I always say, yeah, we're a small business. We're definitely a small business. Love it.
So that's that agility piece, right? Before you said it's about the mindset, and you combine that with the way you look for opportunities. So basically, if you compare it to a ship analogy, they're a cruise ship where it takes a while for them to turn. Yeah. You guys are a tugboat. You can turn on a dime, that kind of a thing.
Yep. I'll run circles around the cruise ship until they realize what's going on. They probably won't even see the tugboat. So
got it.
It's a great analogy, and that's really the biggest. That's how we compete, and also listen. When you get into when you're dealing with all the larger organizations, right, with some of our competitors, I think sometimes they maybe make decisions from a financial point of view, right, and they think short-sighted. For us, all of our brands, I tell all of our distributors, all of our brand owners that we manage, it's the long-term plan that makes sense. We are conservative, but we're always focused on the next 5-10 years of the brand, because it takes time. It's not easy to build these brands, right? So we do things not from a financial standpoint, but we do things because we know in the long run it's going to make sense. It's going to be helpful for our customers. And I'll give you an example. Actually, I touched on it with the ingredients. We had one product that it had an ingredient, and I'm being vague on purpose because of some confidentiality stuff, so bear with me. There was one ingredient that we had, and it was fine. It worked very well, high quality, had some studies. A newer ingredient came into play and had more studies, and it had, better efficacy, and it worked better. The price was like 30% higher for raw material. However, going back to the regulation, I can't leverage those benefits. So essentially, the customer will never know that is being done and why it's being done, and that it's better. Literally, the name of that ingredient would have to stay the same as per the regulatory. We did it. We increased it. We increased the cost of that particular raw ingredient by 30%. And I don't know if other larger companies would have done that. We did it because we know in the long run, it's going to work better. Customers are going to enjoy it. They're going to talk about it. It's just going to be a compounding effect. So those are little things that we do just simply because we care about the products that we're putting out there and the relationship between our products and our customers. Right. So that's another advantage.
Well, it's good to know, especially in the pharmaceutical space. It seems like that's something you'd want to have for a dietary supplement in general. So, all right. Well, this was great. So what I think we'll do now, there's a couple questions in the chat, but I'd encourage anybody who's listening in, who hasn't yet chimed in, if you'd like to chime in and put a question in the chat, feel free to do so. Nicholas has two questions. Yep. The first question is, have product distribution costs changed during COVID? And then two, how hard was it to find the perfect first hires?
Okay, yeah, so those are great questions. So product distribution, it'll go back to the topic that I was talking about with the chains, right? In putting your product into these large CVS, the Walgreens of the world and all that stuff. When you're in those chains, there's a lot of different fees that are associated to it. There's also expectations. You have to meet certain thresholds and sales goals and all that stuff. Well, because COVID affected everybody, COVID affected, these stores as well. They also changed their requirements and their fee structure, and they try to pass that on to us, the products trying to get in. That's why I say it's not, for us at least, it's almost not advantageous for us to go through the change because it's so expensive now. The fee structure, the expectations that, we have to make sure that the product is selling out in the stores within 6 months. Otherwise they drop us, right? Even after we put in all of this investment. So what I'm starting to see, especially with our organization, we're focusing on the distribution that goes directly to the customer and that allows us to control the messaging. Okay. Once it's in a store, I cannot control if that particular customer is going to ask a sales associate, hey, what do you know about this product? Chances are they're not going to know anything about our product. So they're acting as a spokesman for our brand, and they don't know anything about it. Versus a customer going through our e-commerce store, they go to our webpage, and we'll have a chat window that appears. Do you need help? And they'll ask our customer service person, hey, how do you use this product? And they're informed, obviously. So it's all about that, how you want to control that information going to the customer. And COVID definitely accelerated that. It was going towards that, but COVID accelerated that. And that second question about if it was hard to find the first hire, yeah, and it's hard to find the second hire, the third hire, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the 10th. It's hard finding the right person in an organization like ours. It's tough, and I say that because we are a family company, and we have purposely set up our company to be, I wouldn't say laid back, but we work hard and we play hard, right? So we give a lot of trust to our employees. If our employees say, "Oh, listen, I'm going to be 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late," I really don't care about that stuff, because if I'm worrying about if they're going to be 20 minutes late, then I don't trust the employee. I trust that they're going to give you that level of work and seriousness at the office. So that dynamic doesn't work for everybody. So finding that right person to fit that dynamic is so hard and crucial. So things that I do is, when we're hiring somebody, I will ask every single one of our employees their thoughts, every single one. And I value what their opinion is like. And every single person that we hire, we put them on a 6-month probation. And during those 6 months, I really try to gauge how they're interacting with our employees, almost more so than how they're working. Because if I don't want to have a situation where one employee feels that another employee is not working as hard, right? And I try not to do that, because it just brings morale down. And we're a team. We have to trust that everyone's doing their individual tasks to the best of their ability. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to screw up. We're going to learn from them. We handle it as a team. So it's a great question, and it's very hard. It's not just the first hire. It's definitely all the hires.
And I think we could help you with those next hires with our brilliantly trained Masters of Science in Technology, Innovation, Management, and Entrepreneurship students.
There you go.
Certainly, though, I think, moving forward, COVID will probably accelerate the need to push technology into organizations and deploy it intelligently. So not necessarily technology for the sake of technology, but technology that makes that customer experience better, that ensures the product quality is better, that makes the distribution more efficient, and all of these different things. And I think, moving forward, it's going to be really interesting to see how companies like yours and smaller and bigger, just across the board, how they do that. So that is that is good to hear.
COVID definitely changed the way a lot of companies think. It definitely changed the way we think. So now we're very much open to having our employees work from home, depending on the situation. But it allowed us to be a little to collaborate more. But I think we were talking about this before. I like the hustle and bustle of everyone at the office and seeing everyone, because organically conversations come up and ideas are formed, and we learn so much from each other when that happens. And Steve, we also talked about when we have staff meetings here, we do it virtually, and because just to prevent congregation from happening in spaces. And it's so hard to gauge people's reaction to things, and it's so difficult to get that personal connection and get passionate about an idea or figure out a problem collectively. So
yeah. Very good. Any other questions from our audience?
I think there was the question about maybe partnering with Amazon. I quickly touched on that, but maybe I can expand on it. So, you know, there was a question that you had asked about some difficulties and challenges in the market. And I would say that Amazon is both on the, you know, challenge side and also positive side. Because it's one of those things, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? If your products are not on Amazon, you're missing a huge potential. But when your products are on Amazon, you're dealing with a lot of headaches, right? And it really goes back to the way Amazon has structured their business. And they're very consumer focused, which is great. They, in my opinion, at least, they may not have, or they're at the moment, at least, they may not have the best tools available for brand owners and brand managers to effectively manage the brand, right? So you'll see a lot of products. I don't know if people have noticed, depending on the item, the price of the product could fluctuate. So for us, where we're really trying to manage the perception of the brand, and we never compete on price, right? So our products are generally on the medium to higher end. When you're building a brand, price is so important because it gives you the essence of the perceived value, right? So if you have a product go from $40 to $20, well, the customers are going to assume, well, wow, that's a crazy discount. And I always give the analogy, have you ever seen Apple give 50% discount on things? No, it's not part of their marketing, right? So unfortunately with Amazon, unless you manage it, it's really hard to manage price. You're going to get those fluctuations that happen.
If Apple did give 50% discounts, I'd probably be bankrupt at this point. I'd just start buying everything on principle.
Well, yeah, so. Look, Apple gives for a computer. I'm on the Mac right now, $2,500 computer that I could have probably got $1,000 at somewhere else, you know. But that's that brand, right? That's that brand utility.
It happens to also be a beautiful piece of machinery, but that's for a separate.
Yes, right. You are right.
Oh, geez. Well, hey, I think that ought to take us to the finish line. But again, I want to thank both of our sponsors, RIT's Master of Technology, Innovation Management, and Entrepreneurship, as well as WynnPharm. If anybody would like to get in contact with me or Pietro, you can send me an email at scarnovale@saunders.rit.edu. And Pietro, if you want to give your email address, if you don't mind.
So absolutely, definitely reach out. It's P as in Pietro, then Barone, Barone, at Windfarm.com. So it's WynnPharm.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us, for your time, Pietro, and thank you everybody for being here. Hopefully have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.